Good afternoon. Today is Monday, January the 29th. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here.
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 Present.
Present.
Thank you. First, we're going to bring up ordinance number 36-2024 as amended by Council Members Conwell, Griffin, Starr, Gray by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend the title, the second whereas clause, and sections 1 and 4 of ordinance number 895-2022 passed October 3rd, 2022, relating to authorizing the Director of Planning to create the Transformative Arts Project Fund program, to repeal Section 5 and renumber existing Section 6 to new Section 5. And I believe that the amendment, let me make sure I read that into the record. We have several amendments. I will try to go through very fast. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows: in the title, line 3, after sections 1, insert 2, and then line 6, after program, insert to supplement the ordinance to add new section 2A. Number 2, in section 1, line 1, after section 1, insert 2. In section 1, add amended section 1, line 1, after planning, insert director. In the line, strike of city planning. In line 7, after fund program, insert the program. And at the end of quarterly, insert the Assembly for the Arts shall work with the director and the program arts committee to administer the program and to select the artist, and set forth in file number 36-2024-A. Number 4, in section 1, add amended section 2. Strike section 2 in its entirety and insert Section 2, that the contract authorized in Section 1 shall be prepared by the Director of Law and contain such terms and conditions as set forth in the above-mentioned file. In Section 1, add amended Section 4, lines 1 and 2, strike grant agreement into under this ordinance and insert agreement shall not exceed $90,000. And in 6, in Section 2, line 1, after Section 1, insert 2. In 7, strike Section 3 in its entirety and insert Section 3, that ordinance number 895-2022 passed October 3rd, 2022 is supplemented by adding new Section 2A to read as follows. Section 2A, that the Assembly for the Arts, the Director, and the Program Arts Committee will report to Council quarterly as set forth in the above-mentioned file regarding the use of funds and program progress. Date 1/28/24, signed Vishnu Gagliani, Assistant Director of Law. Ms. Brown, do you want to join us at the table? And Director Wang, is Director Wang going to join us? Ms. Brown, what's your title again?
Senior Strategist, Arts, Culture, and Creative Economy.
Okay. Welcome to the table. Floor is both of yours.
Great. Thank you all. This ordinance was before you first in the fall of 2022. Since then, we have hired Senior Strategist Rhonda Brown to join the administration last summer. And from there, she has developed a really strong process for this Transformative Arts Fund with our resident Program Arts Committee. So we're before you here today with an administrative request to go to the next step of the RFP process for the Transformative Arts Fund, which Rhonda Brown will walk through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Huang. Through the chair to the Council Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, I'm pleased to be here to present to you today, and also want to share that Director Wang and I left Health and Human Services and the Arts Committee meeting with unanimous support for the amendments to 895-2022, with full committee now sponsoring the legislation for the Transformative Art Fund. Because of the legislation you passed in October 2022, giving authority for a committee to be formed to take shape to the $3 million fund to support the creation of transformative arts project in the city of Cleveland. I thank you for your support. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the members of the Transformative Arts Fund Committee, which is made up of practicing artists, arts administrators. If they are here, please stand and be recognized. Dr. William C. Washington, Ms. Leticia Lopez, Dr. Washington, is from the Collinwood Community, Ward 8. Ms. Leticia Lopez, Executive Director of Julio de Burgos Cultural Center, is from Ward 14, Clark Fulton Community. Ms. Gina Washington from Ward 10 is a practicing artist in photography and mixed media, an arts educator and entrepreneur. Vince Robinson, Mr. Vince Robinson, is a musician, spoken word, poet, and media professional, an artist and entrepreneur and founder of Larchmere Arts in Ward 10. Ms. Maya Curtis lives in Ward 6, is an artist and arts administrator who is working as a grants manager for Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. Ms. Gwen Garth from Ward 5 is a multimedia artist, entrepreneur, and arts activist, and founded Kings and Queens of Art and received a number of grant awards to do her work. And Ms. Deirdre McPherson is the Chief Community Officer at Assembly for the Arts. Deirdre knows the pulse of the Cleveland arts community, and in addition to her work, holds many roles on boards within arts and civic and culture organizations. I truly thank the committee for their work and support of the Transformative Art Fund. This is a volunteer role. Appointed as detailed in the legislation, the committee not only has expertise in the field, they, as practicing artists in this community, have given shape to a major investment in public art. I thank them for their thought leadership. I thank City Council, too, for your championing of this initiative, for valuing artists, for your commitment, and for your investment in the arts in the city of Cleveland. The TAF committee, as outlined in the legislation, is required to meet quarterly, but we have met monthly. What I'd like to do is very briefly share the vision for our work and the values and the framework that we have put together, and all of this is in your executive summary that you've got in front of you. The Distinguished Committee shared its work by building a framework around how to define transformative. Collectively, we came up with the following vision for our work. We believe that art in all its forms has the capacity to transcend boundaries, inspire social change, educate, evoke emotion, and ignite the human spirit. It has the capacity to build bridges between people from different backgrounds, to foster empathy and understanding and unity. Through the funding of the projects led by artists in collaboration and with an institutional partner within the 17 wards of the city of Cleveland, including a community or location, we are committed to harnessing the power of public arts initiatives as a catalyst for positive change. Our vision is to support and promote innovative, thought-provoking, inclusive, Cleveland-centric public art that ignites inspiration, fosters dialogue, and drives social transformation. You have heard about the committee and our collective values. I'd like to return to the request. Through the chair to the committee, it is difficult to do anything if you have to worry about how you're going to pay for it. Artists are no different than anyone else. They need the peace of mind to be creative to do what they do best. This request is to amend 895-2022 to include the Assembly for the Arts as an important partner in this work. Approval of this amendment would remove important barriers from artists having to wait to the end of a project to get paid and allow them the resources they need to execute projects and to be creative, to purchase supplies, and to deliver on their winning project application. The essential project management functions that Assembly for the Arts would complete is disbursement, accepting the funds from the city to disperse the grant awardees with the direction from the City of Cleveland. As written, this legislation allows for the award to go to a CDC, a nonprofit, and/or public or private entity. Final grant awardees' recommendations from the TAF committee require final approval from Mayor Bibb, Council President Griffin, and Councilman Conwell. In addition, Assembly is providing us technological expertise. The city does not have access to suitable technology to develop and receive artist applications, review and score applications, nor communicate with applicants through the process. Assembly for the Arts, the service organization for Cuyahoga County, does. Using submittable and awards management software, we will establish and create the Transformative Arts Fund application. Again, this software will enable the committee to review the applications, and the Assembly staff, through software, will accept the applications, be able to communicate with applicants, and manage and implement the process preparing TAF responses for committee review. And finally, we will work with them to coordinate our committee quarterly check-ins. This work is connected with the awardees on a quarterly basis to ensure that the projects are on task, the budget is drawing down according to plan, and also to hear general updates about their progress. Assembly will work with city staff to conduct 4 quarterly check-ins at the end of the month with the lead artist, the institutional partner, and myself. These will take place September 2024, December 2024, April 2025, and July 2025. Through the chair, we are grateful for the support of our partner, Assembly for the Arts. They are an arts service organization for the county and have a great deal of experience dispersing funds for project awards like these. For technical support with creation, management, implementation of the application as described, disbursement of funds, and quarterly check-ins. The TAF awardees and anticipated 6 to 12 awardees from the time of the award, which is in May of 2024, till August of 2025, we have agreed to a 3%, which totals $90,000 fee for their work. The remaining balance of the TAF fund would be $2,910,000 to disperse to awardees. I want to reiterate that working for the reasons stated is critical to supporting artists. Is Jeremy Johnson here? Yes, I'd like to invite Executive Director of the Assembly for the Arts, Jeremy Johnson, to say a few words about how important it is for us to support artists in this way. Executive Director Johnson?
Through the chair, to our strategists, senior strategists. First of all, thank you to this august body for your past support. To remind you that it was over a year ago that City Council approved the initial part of these dollars in the aftermath of the pandemic, where all of our communities were hurting, but none, especially the arts and culture community of Cleveland. What we have now is an opportunity to be good on that, on your wonderful commitment, to be sure that dollars go to transform our communities. And Assembly for the Arts, we stand here as a proven nonprofit to help to make this happen. Let me remind you all that we are a nonprofit, and our mission is twofold: to expand the pie of resources for the arts and culture sector, and 2, to increase the equity within this wonderfully diverse sector. Getting dollars into the hands of the creatives who will make this transformational arts fund possible is critical. Unlike other institutions that city government, county governments often work with, where they may be able to float dollars until a project is moved to completion, our creative community, while they are great at what they do, great at what they will propose, very often they do not have that wherewithal. Working with the city, with our senior strategist, with our director of planning, we can assure that there will be due diligence as we work with these partners, with both the institutions that will receive these dollars and the artists who are the lead partners. Let me remind you that Assembly for the Arts, we were in charge of millions of dollars in ARPA dollars that came through our doors to Greater Cleveland artists. Those have been audited. We've got a clean bill of health, and we stand ready to support this major work. So thank you for having us. Through the chair, I'm open to any questions from anyone here.
All right, thank you. First of all, well done. I think you guys have put a lot of work and thought into this. I know that there was always a conversation about oversight. I believe that Councilman Conwell helped work through that. I want to commend him and his committee for really pulling that through. Just a couple of things that I want to ask, and then I'll give it to Councilman Conwell, and then Councilman Polensik I have on the calendar. I know that with the I know that there are groups that actually have plans already, and I'm not sure if you have assembled a plan, but for example, like Burton Bell Carr, I know this because I sponsored it, did a Elevate the East arts plan. Are you looking at those plans that communities may or may not have done around artistic expression? And are you willing to work with those groups in order to try to strategically help implement those plans? Because we actually have a plan in place with Burton Bell Carr that actually hopefully this can plug into.
Please.
Absolutely. So part of what we're evaluating with these projects is the readiness. And so if you have a plan, if you have a partner, if you have artists, certainly you're able to deliver that in time. The end date to the project is going to be August 2025 with, the project starting in June 2024. So artists and their partners should be able to show that they have to get to the ground and hit the ground running.
Okay.
If I may add, Councilman Chair, any artist is eligible to submit and would absolutely be, I would love the opportunity to connect with some of the CDCs that have these plans and to share the details, the criteria, and all of the resources that we have, and invite them to make application for this grant award.
Okay, I just hope, sure, if just finish up on that thing. I just hope that, we spend a lot of money and time on those plans. It'd really be not a good thing if we put all this money and time towards implementing a plan and then we're shovel ready and get overlooked. I don't want to, I know everybody has to go through a process, but I really hope that people who have submitted plans, especially with these CDCs, that's why I house everything through my CDCs, so it's not like a one-off group. But I would strongly request that you maybe put out a missive to all of the CDCs, but especially requesting the ones that put the arts projects in place, because we spend a significant amount of money to put a plan in place. And even though we've gotten some funding to do some things, this would be good to try to put in place. And it's called Elevate the East. So, Councilman Conway, you had a point.
Yeah, Burton Bell and Carr, for me personally, means a lot to me. I know that through the chair, it's difficult. It's awkward for me being on this side. But Jerry Prim, I think he was going to, or he tried to introduce her to me. It's a
Joy Johnson is the
Yes.
president, the director.
And I walked that area, and that need to happen. It need to happen over there. And but can you just give her my cell number?
We'll work with that.
And I'll meet with the planning director, and it's been on my mind really for about a year or two, just
And
in
I
that
really
area.
hope that they can talk with you, if I could, Councilman, and meet with Ms. Brown so that they can just go over the details of it. And it's really a plan to try to put artistic expression on Buckeye, Woodhill,
Yep.
and East 93rd. And I mean, I know that that's a Ward 6. I always advocate for the whole city, but I'm sure that there's other neighborhoods that probably have some kind of arts plan as well.
You know what, Mr. President, and I mentioned this morning, as well as to the arts director and the planning director, I don't really look at wards like that. I look at how it's going to benefit the whole. You hear what I'm saying? And I mentioned that this morning when we were talking. Isn't that true? So I don't care if I'm on the east side or west side. It's the city. And I want to say this in my conclusion. As a council member, my job is to write policy for people that live, work, and travel to the city of Cleveland. And that's what I mentioned this morning. So that's why for 2 years, but you can give her my cell, just give her my cell, and then we move forward. We got to take a look at that, because it's needed badly, and they have an old historical area. There's a lot of culture there. So sorry, that's why I came over
Okay.
here.
All right. So we look forward to working with you on that. One other thing, and I see that you got Vince at Ward 9 and Ward 10, but Vince actually, Large Mill Arts is actually 6, right? Okay. That's what I was wondering. I
adjust
just want to
that.
make sure.
I'll
But
adjust that.
it's just want to make
Thank
sure
you.
we're
That
doing
that was an incorrection.
Okay, but then, because I didn't know, I was about to say, he said Large
He
Mill
is in
Arts
Lord
over
6.
in
Yeah,
Ward 10.
you're right.
Okay, but I know that, and this is more for Mr. Johnson, I know that there was some challenges that the Assembly of Arts got from especially some of the minority artists. How and what did you guys do to address that? And, I take it that Ms. Brown and others have done their due diligence to make sure that you guys, always are going to be diverse in equity and inclusion, but was that your organization? And
Prior to my arriving, there may have been those concerns.
Okay.
To the chair, I'm here to say that we are all about the equity and making sure that our entire city is represented. And we've done that with the ARPA dollars. If you follow what we did with the county dollars, that question was posed to us. And we made sure that we didn't just post applications on our website, but we had community engagement sessions. We had them at Julio de Burgos. We had them at Glen Village. We had them at Larchmere. You all understand better than I do, when we engage with our communities, we have to do more than just put something on a website. We have to be thoughtful in our engagement. With our 26 board members, including, and with the support of this council and this body, with Councilman Conwell, I pledge to you that we will be sure that the applications that come through will be representative of all of the city of Cleveland.
Okay. All right. I think I'm good, but did you have something else you wanted to add?
Only if to the chair, if the committee would like to know more information about the eligibility and any of the details, I'd be happy to share that. It's also in the executive summary, and also I'd be happy to meet with each of you individually so that any of the artists in your ward or any of the institutions that are in your ward that may be eligible to apply, that we could work together in ensuring that they have the information they need to apply. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is there will be 3 virtual sessions, information sessions, and there will be 3 in-person sessions, and these will take place in the communities so that artists and institutions can have access to the information.
Okay. All right. I had Councilman Conwell and Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to the folks here at the table, including the director. If I am to understand, let me see what we've got here. If I am to understand, according to your handout and what we have on the screen here, there'll be awards to just between 6 and 12 awardees.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes. There will be between 6 and 12 awardees. That is based on the $2.9 million fund that we have, and that the anticipated budget expenditure is to be $250,000 to $500,000 per estimated project budget.
Project or group?
Correct.
Okay. So the board that you have passed out the information on, the board will screen, the committee, the Transformative Arts Projects Fund Committee, will screen the prospective organizations.
The applications, yes.
Applications, and then make a decision.
They will screen the first set of applications, and from those first set of applications, we will know who will make it to the next step,
Okay.
and who will not make it to that next step. And we endeavored to also have resources for artists that may not make it to the next step from our colleagues at CAC as well as Assembly for the Arts.
Okay. Who will, once the awards are given, who will monitor to see if there's performance?
Through the chair to the councilman. There are several steps in place that we will work with Assembly for the Arts to ensure that the artists and the institutional partners are on track with their budgets, with their plans, and any other issues that they may have through the development of their project. These check-ins will be set for quarterly, so September 2024, December 2024, April 2025, and July 2025. So I will be involved in those conversations along with a representative from the Assembly for the Arts, and we will continue to monitor their work through the committee.
Okay. So could these funds actually go to an individual?
No. Through the chair to the councilman, the legislation prevents
Yes.
the dollars going directly to an individual. So the legislation allows for the dollars to go to a CDC, a nonprofit, or a private or public entity.
Okay. So going back to the council president's comments, part of the challenge that we have, as you're aware, I hope you're aware, on the east side, is either some of the CDCs that don't exist or dysfunctional CDCs. So I want to make sure that neighborhoods or areas of the city that are in that situation are not denied access are not denied the opportunity, because that's a great concern to me. I want to make sure, because what I'm hearing, and I want it reinforced, that there's no section of the city, no ethnic, racial, religious group is excluded. Everybody's in the mixer, correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, there is no restrictions
Okay.
on who can apply for this award. Also, I want to add that the institutions that are eligible to apply include, but are not limited to, entities like Metro Health, Cleveland Clinic, Case Western Reserve, Cleveland Public Library, I'm sorry, I just moved back here from
Yeah.
Chicago.
Okay.
And any other entity that meets the financial qualifications in order to be an institutional partner.
Okay. So then you took me into my next line of questioning. So as we've seen in the past, part of the challenge has been with arts funding is that the big players seem to get the big bucks. How do you make sure or guarantee that the quote-unquote smaller entities, smaller organizations, have a level playing field?
Through the chair to the councilman, we are looking and working and reaching out to a number of organizations, not based on their size, but based on their interest and their ability to execute. There are some requirements that we are ensuring that the institutional partners need to hold. For example, we do need a 2 years of audit. We do need an organizational budget from the partner. We also need a demonstrated commitment through a letter that articulates that the institutional partner understands what the project is, understands what the budget is, and is willing to engage in the resources for the project. But there is no restriction on who can engage. And in fact, we have created a form that will be on the website, one for interested institutional partners and others for interested artists. And so they can fill out a form, and we will swap that information with each resource so that they are aware of institutional partners that are interested in participating, as well as interested artists who are willing to lead the projects, because these are artist-led projects.
And they all must be based in the city of Cleveland.
They all must have a verifiable Cleveland address.
Okay. And at some point, what is the role of city council after this process? Is there any coming back to us? Is there any additional updates to us on who received the grants, what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera? What is the engagement once we pass this with city council?
Through the council, through the chair to the councilman, this morning in the Health, Human Services and Arts Committee, it was recommended that we come back to the table at these quarterly moments to share updates with council. And I enjoy this. This is nice to be here with you all today.
Okay. So it was recommended. Was it an amendment?
It was an amendment.
It was an amendment.
It was
sir.
an
Sorry.
amendment?
Yes.
Okay, fine. That's what I'm glad to hear. Well, Mr. Chairman, it's like with anything, as I've learned here over the years, we have funded a lot of organizations. Some have performed, some haven't. And so I say to myself so often, when I look at the amount of money that has gone out the door, especially across the entire city, I keep asking myself so often, where did it go? Because we have so little to show for it. So I'm hoping with these dollars that, again, the proof will be in the pudding, that we can really start to see some improvement and some help for the performing arts and people involved in arts across the board, and that we're going to see it in our neighborhoods. And again, not just the big players getting it, as we've seen with the past arts funding. Because I've heard that repeatedly from this artists and small organizations, that they have just been basically been cut out of the picture. I'm talking about the county funds. They've been just cut out of the picture for the most part. So again, I wish you success, and I'm glad that the council made the amendment this morning, and we'll see how this goes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up to your question, one of the challenges that a lot of these organizations have, to your point about making sure that the little guy gets an opportunity, a lot of them don't have if you don't limit this, which is why we kind of changed the structure
Yeah.
of distribution, if you don't do that, then a lot of these smaller organizations can't compete because only the big institutions like Cleveland Institute of Art and some of those
Yep.
other big
Yep.
institutions can put the front money and get reimbursed.
Yep.
So part of the reason why Councilman Conwell made those amendments is so that we can still have oversight, but also give the flexibility and ability for the Assembly of Arts to make sure we get money out the door.
Thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, guys. Thank you, Councilman Conwell. You did a great job with this. Councilman Harrison had a point
No, just if you put me on the list.
for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
You're on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the members from the administration and to the Assembly of the Arts. Councilman Conwell has done an excellent job in ushering this to the point it is today. I'm glad that we see some equity as relates to the appointments on this committee, not 5 members from the administration, 1 person from city council like we typically see. So I'm glad. Good. I'm glad that this is moving the way it is. I see a good mixture from organizations, wards, all across the city. So that's a good thing. But just to Councilman Polenzic's, just to further on Councilman Polenzic's questions and points, you know, one of the things as I'm reading through the documentation, oftentimes what I see, for example, inspired learning through the arts that Councilman Conwell championed and made sure was happening. And what irks me every time I look at that, he's nowhere mentioned on that. That's a problem. Like, if it wasn't for this man in the donated instruments, like, it would not be, it wouldn't be in play now. And so, you know, before, when we went through our ARPA allocations that relates to some work we're doing on the southeast side, one of the amendments that one of the things that we talked about was to ensure that city council is included on any and all documents that go out to those who are recipients of funds that we have allocated. So I really think into this body that we should do the same thing with this. Any and all documents that goes out related to the transformative arts, whether it's rewards, whether it's whatever communications go out, that city council shall be listed on those documents, because this is just not an administration thing. This is a council thing as well, right? Because this body and this council person in particular has championed this. We hear it all the time. We even hear it above our heads sometimes when he's upstairs in his office. So, you know, absolutely. So, you know, again, I think it would be appropriate that this body is added to an equal footing. There's no big eyes, no little eyes, right? That those we're positioned equally on our documents and all communications as relates to this Transformative Art Fund that we are considering today. I also think, Mr. Chair, to the folks who are here, that there should be some notification that comes to this body, because oftentimes we won't see something until it gets to design review. We may get something from our arts coordinator who's in the audience here, and sometimes those notifications may be after the fact and so forth. So I think it would be important that you know, when there is an award made or a project is selected and chosen and an artist wants to move forward or institution would like to move forward, that this body receive notification of what that is. And I'll stop there. And so those are just some of my thoughts in case anyone else on the committee would like to weigh in.
You want to respond, Ms. Brown?
Or to the administration would like to respond.
Through the chair to the councilman, I could not agree more that Councilman Conwell is not only a champion of the arts, but he has been incredibly supportive of this process from the beginning. He attended our December meeting, and at that December meeting, we ended with a picture of the committee with Councilman Conwell at the Huff Public Library branch. It was fantastic. So I concur. We will keep you abreast of all of the work. I think that co-branding this initiative, we need your support. We need everybody in your ward and, you know, in your neighborhood. So there should be no issue with that.
I would like to add, this is an opportunity to the councilman through the chair, because this is a proactive fund that we have set up that, you know, with the quarterly oversight meetings, you know, we will be sharing that information with you. And this is something where we actively get to put something out to the community, to the city, and say, please, you know, apply to us. Versus a design review, which is typically other people just kind of submitting and where we're kind of reacting to that. So because this is a proactive fund, we will be proactive in our communication with you.
Also through the chair to the committee. This morning I did say that I would gladly meet with each council person to make sure that artists and institutions alike are involved and getting the information for this fund. So that would be an excellent way to also partner in the production of this work.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the response. So at this point, I guess, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for the amendments that I just kind of narrated. That we, Mr. Chair, that we require any and all documents related to the Transformative Arts Fund be co-branded with Cleveland City Council, whether that is in writing, whether that is digital, whether that is in whatever form that information goes out, that this is co-branded along with Cleveland City Council. Also, that Cleveland City Council shall receive notification or any awards, intended awards to projects, artists, or institutions be received by Cleveland City Council. And also, well, I can leave the last one off. I was going to also recommend that, I know that there's a link going to be on the city's website for folks to apply, but I think that's all should be available on City Council website, because sometimes folks visit City Council's website as well, that there'll be a place, or it's on our landing page or some sort, where they can get to the application from both council and City of Cleveland's website.
Excellent.
So,
right.
Attorney Roberts, do you have those amendments?
I have the first one.
It was 2 amendments. If Councilman Hairston can reread the 2 amendments.
The second one is the notification, council notification of any awards to any projects, artists, or any institutions through the Transformative Arts Fund. Period. So we get notification. All right? Sounds good.
To the chair, to the council, I also want to highlight that once the committee has reviewed and scored all the applications and gone through the second phase of interviews with the institutional partners and lead artists, final recommendations from the committee are to be delivered to President Griffin, Councilman Conwell, and Mayor Bibb for final approval.
Okay, sounds good. And I appreciate that, and I know Councilman Conwell did second both motions, but we want to make sure that the body as a whole is notified, after the 3 have made their recommendations for funding.
Okay, so before I move forward, I have a motion on the table for, I think that's 2 amendments.
Yes.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded, Casey? Conwell?
Casey.
Okay, Casey. All in favor, say, or is there any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Councilman Conwell, any closing remarks, or before we move
to Council Member Mike Polensek, he was discussing about the arts. To the chair, to Council Member Mike Polensek, I made a request this morning also why this money is moving forward, but at the same time, we will be researching for other funding at the same time. So if someone is denied, we're looking for money elsewhere. So and other resources so that we can take care of our residents and continue to keep pushing the arts. So not only are we going to rely on the $3 million, and also to the chair, to Councilmember Mike Polensek, our request for an evaluation process as well. Because in a good evaluation, you can end up receiving more dollars. So the main thing, all eyes are on us. They'll be watching us. And let me say this about, I always say Director Rhonda Brown. She's written proposals before, and matter of fact, and received funding. And you can tell them how much money you have received in the past, because we watched you on TV.
Through the council, to the chair, to the committee, my past career has been in fundraising at the 7-figure level.
Mm-hmm. So we've been talking about that. We don't, I view this as seed money. It's there in working capital, but we're gonna move forward and bring in other dollars and continue to bring other dollars. in the long run, this short run, in the long run, to my colleagues, I would love to legislate with your support of us working together to create a department for the arts. And as I mentioned this morning, a lot of the art ideas came from the city of Cleveland, or you would not have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right across from you that's behind us. Mr. President, I'm not happy about when I go through the airport, you don't see the art that's there. You should be seeing bands playing, the whole 9 yards. We should be no different than Nashville or Memphis or Austin, Texas, or even New Orleans. When you walk around Cleveland, you feel the vibes and the vibration of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You feel the blues and the great symphony orchestra and the jazz, and even the Latin music that's here in the city of Cleveland. When we push the arts, people will want to come back to Cleveland, and we are able to make more and more dollars. So I want to thank this body for supporting this legislation, but we have a lot of work to do also to make sure that Cleveland is #1 again. Thank you, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, the rotunda or the second floor with all those artistic pieces look absolutely phenomenal. So keep up the good work, okay? All right. And when is the big event that you're hosting again? If you could tell us again.
Through the chair to the council, on Thursday, February 1st, Discover the Promise, Impact, Legacy, and Perspective will Impact, Legacy, and Perspective will open here at 5 p.m. You are all welcome to join us. I think I sent an email to each of you with the Eventbrite. We have 500 people responded for the event already. Wow. So it should be a wonderful event.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Next, we're going to bring up, and I'm going to ask if our attorney, Rachel Scalish, can come to the table. But next, we're going to bring up ordinance number 1023-2023 by council members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend sections 433.09, 605.04, 607.03, 607.04, 607.17, 617.02, and 625.05 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by various ordinances, and to repeal Section 607.13 and 607.18 of the Codified Ordinances. I do want to make sure that I let the public and this body know that this was not recommended for passage. Public Safety had 6 members that took an action on this, and it was not recommended for passage. I will give Attorney Scalish the floor to go over our process on how this ended up here. It was the chairs, once the action was taken, then it then was moved to finance. And I think that the word, well, I'll just let our attorney kind of explain what it is, and then we'll go to the public safety folks.
Thank you. Through the chair, the committee's role in the legislative process is to recommend to the entire council whether to pass or recommend not passing a piece of legislation. In this case, the committee voted and it was reported as not recommended, as you said. At that point, the committee's role is finished, and since there was a vote taken and discussed, it moves out of committee to the next committee. That's how it ended up in finance,
Okay.
as a piece not recommended by that safety
So it
committee.
wasn't relieved, it was an actual action that was taken by the committee, which then precipitated it to go to finance.
Yes. After
Okay.
a vote is taken, it moves.
So
moves out.
after a vote is taken, it moves. Now, just to give a scenario, if it was held in that committee, then it would not effectively move out of finance unless the chair relieved it out of finance to the finance committee.
Right, but you wouldn't hold a piece that's already been voted on
Okay.
in the committee.
Right, but my point is, I'm giving an if statement. Because an action was taken, it moved to the next committee.
Correct.
If an action was not taken, then it could either stay in that committee or it not be moved to the next committee.
Correct. You would, yes, you'll hold it and for further discussion or relieve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that there were some procedural questions that Councilwoman House had, and I want to give her an opportunity if she has any follow-up questions, because I know we all received a letter around procedural questions that she had, if we can make sure we get clarity. Councilwoman House, did you have any procedural questions? And then we'll get into from the Safety Department on why this legislation is needed. Councilwoman House.
Yeah, I mean, just on, to the chair, thank you, on asking procedural questions. If this is the case in which, in the rule, it basically says after a committee takes an action, then the legislation goes before council. And I've asked, we were asking, what does that actually mean? Does council mean committee or does council mean council? Because again, my concern is what would be the purpose of a committee if they say don't recommend it and then it just can go to another committee? Like, that's what I'm really trying to get clarification, and that's what Councilman Starr and Councilman Gray, we were asking, because it's like, what's the purpose of having a committee? If that's the case, they should just all come to finance, and there's no need to have a committee with a conversation.
And this has come up in not just this committee, so if we need clarification on why, because this has actually come up in a couple of committees before.
Well, the purpose of any committee is to review and vet the legislation specific to that committee, and then move it on. And I know that, Council President, you have been interested in having that vetting to the specific
more in the
committees
committee.
happen in those committees so that there doesn't have to be so much vetting in the Finance Committee.
And I've been very reluctant to move anything to the Finance Committee without it being vetted at the committee level, so that we can make sure that those conversations happen. Unless there's something that is very pressing, I've really tried to do that. But I could see your point about the clarification of how does it go to the full body or does it go to the Finance Committee. That may be something that we might need to revisit in our rules and clarify the language if that is ambiguous language.
Well, through the chair, I mean, when we say council, we mean council as a body. When we say council committee, we're specific to whatever committees we're speaking of.
So that's the
So
council
council
point.
always means council as a full body.
But Councilwoman
This-
House is saying this too, and
that-
her
that is-
point is that
that's my
it
point.
leaves it open, because does that mean that it goes straight to the entire body to vote for? It doesn't necessarily spell out to say it goes to the Finance Committee.
When a piece of legislation is introduced, it is, the clerk puts on the appropriate committees where it goes, okay? Finance is always the last one. But the recommendations from the committee do indeed go to the entire body, okay? It moves on to different committees, but those recommendations are always for the body.
Okay.
So you're recommending whether to pass or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got it. So I guess what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if we need clarification, Councilwoman, then that's something we need to look at our rules and make sure that we get more clarification. Because in my recollection and looking at this from all of the information that we spent last week looking over with this, that if it goes to the full body, then the Finance Committee is just another opportunity to vet it. And that's the way that I've seen this, is that if it's another opportunity to ask the questions that you have, because the way that it's set up is not set up for 3 members to be able to support or deny a piece of legislation moving through the process. So if it's clarification we need, then we'll look at clarification, because you brought up some points that, quite frankly, are valid, and we'll look at those.
So again, we could continue this conversation. I'm not going to get into what 3 members can do or not, but again, what is the purpose? I guess I'm just a point, like a process thing. What is the purpose of a committee? That's all I'm saying. And if you don't need a committee to actually give input, and if it doesn't pass out, when you look at parliamentary procedure, part of my questions is just things that happen in parliamentary procedure, and again, when you look at what happens for a tie, but again, I think there needs to be a little bit more clarity on it, because it's still not necessarily clear. So
Okay.
that's just my point. So
All right, Councilman Pelista, do you have a brief point on this? And then I'm going to hear from our attorneys and Safety Department on why this legislation is
Mr.
needed.
Chairman, I would concur with Ms. Galish's explanation of the process. It's just like when we receive legislation from the administration. If you'll notice on legislation, we'll have, if it's been approved by law, you'll see pieces of legislation come before us that says contents noted, which does not indicate that the administration supports that. But it doesn't stop us from dealing with it. We move it forward. And you'll see that, and that's why I read, when I do legislation as chair, I always read if it was approved by law department, approved by, I go right down the list. But you'll see so often contents noted, but that doesn't stop us from moving it forward. It's the same process.
Okay, clearly we'll revisit this
Okay.
through our body with our attorneys.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that the listening audience as well as our members that had questions about process at least had an opportunity to register their
concur.
concerns, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kalish. I'm going to move forward. Once again, I want to reiterate this was not recommended for passage. It was a 3-3 deadlock vote, but the floor is yours. I guess Assistant Safety Director Coulter, Chief Prosecutor Jordan, and then I asked for somebody to be here from the law department so that they can clarify why you are requesting these amendments to our city charter.
Thank you, Chair. We'll start with just the people at the table. As you mentioned, Law, Stephanie Melnick, our Chief Prosecutor Jordan, and Chief Drummond. I am George Coulter, serving as an Assistant Director for Public Safety in Director Kerry Howard's absence today. We'll start with your question, and then we can move into reading the actual legislation, and we do have an amendment to the legislation. But in summary, this helps align our codified ordinance with the state code and what has already occurred in SB 288. That's the initial intent here, but I'll ask our team to jump in and give you some more thoughts on that. If there's some comfort level there, then we can certainly move to reading the legislation and the amendment at the appropriate section.
Okay. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you to the chair. So echoing what A.D. Coulter has said, what this really does is align Cleveland Codified Ordinance with the state code. It's important to remember in that alignment process, however, Cleveland Police has the ability to cite offenders either under the state code or Cleveland Codified Ordinance. So as most of the state code actually was effective October 3rd, 2023, Cleveland Police and other police within the jurisdiction of Cleveland have been able to cite offenders under the state code. What we're trying to do is align the legislation so they could also be cited under Cleveland Codified Ordinance as well. So our officers aren't always having to rely on state code, but could actually cite offenders under our own code as well. It's just making sure all the language matches up.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, but did Ms. Melnick or Chief Drummond want to add anything to it?
To the chair and the council members, both the assistant director and chief prosecutor Jordan is absolutely correct. All we're asking for is just align the state code with the city ordinance. That's all the city ordinance with state code. So our officers can cite on the city code versus relying on the state code.
Okay. Ms. Melnick, did you want to add to this? And we've done this in several instances before. And maybe if you might have any examples of when we actually did it, if you can give us if you have it. I just don't know if you do, but I know we've done this before. Can you give us any clarity?
Yes, hi, Mr. Chairperson and council members. This is something that we do on a fairly regular basis. This is not anything that's new to the city of Cleveland. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a specific example. I mean, we have amended the codified ordinance when we decriminalized marijuana, and that would be one example, although we went ahead and made some exceptions to that. You know, this, like everybody else says, we're just trying to align with the codified ordinances, so it's easier for the administration, for the police, for the judges. And when we get to the substance of the legislation, I think it's important. It's really broken down into 3 areas. One, you know, replacing texting with driving with provisions about not having handheld electronic devices. The second is amendments that were made to having a lawful meeting. And the last one is really just bringing into line some of our codified ordinances regarding drug possession and paraphernalia. Some of our provisions haven't been updated in many, many years. So we use this as an opportunity to really bring our code up to date, which it was needed.
Okay, just a couple of questions. Let me be the devil's advocate. What happens if we don't do this? And I know Councilman Polensek has a question, but what happens if we do not do this? Because my concern and what some of the members have had a concern about is that will we potentially be setting up citizens of the city of Cleveland to inadvertently receive harsher penalties? And for example, the crack pipe thing. I know we changed the policy 10 years or so. But if we change it to mirror state law, will that mean that we'll also have people that have harsher penalties at the state law? But what does it mean if we don't pass this? And can anybody give us a background on what happens if we don't pass this?
Sure, so I can answer that question to the council president, Chair. If we don't do this, the officers will still have the option to cite under state code. Right? So even Cleveland City Council doesn't move on this. Officers can cite under the ORC. Now, the one thing the ORC provides in the new updated language that wasn't previously present in the ORC or the codified language is that the officers are now required, especially for distracted driving, to provide racial identifiers, right? That's huge. If we're looking at tracking whether or not there's some pretextual stops or whether or not there's equitable administration of criminal justice, having it actually written in the code that the officers have to provide this data is a big factor. So that's something I appreciate that the legislature moved forward on because it's something that's needed. In terms of drug pipes and things of that nature, if you look at what's really happened, how we've cited since mid-2020, we don't cite many misdemeanors. We don't prosecute many misdemeanor drug paraphernalia cases because we understand that's a treatment issue, right? And so instead, we're really trying to put people through services, when necessary, refer them to drug court. So there's a lot of prosecutorial discretion in terms of what we're actually charging versus how we render services to our citizens. So that's important to note, too. Prosecutors always have that option of, yes, this is the law, but is there a better way for us to do this? And that's something to keep in mind as well.
Okay, we have questions from my colleagues. I do want to pivot to Councilman Polensek first. And even though I know that they are not on the Finance Committee, I do want to, if I could, give a couple members of the Safety Committee that have some further questions to Councilman Charles Slife and Councilwoman Stephanie House. So Councilman Mike Polensek, and then we'll go Councilwoman House Jones, and then Councilman Slife.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Safety Director, to the prosecutor, Ms. Melnick. Correct me as well. First of all, I'm going to go back. I've lost count over the years of how many times we've done this. I mean, we've had to do it hundreds of times to mirror city statute to state statute. So there's nothing unique in this. We've done it all the time. My question is this, and whoever answer. If we do not change to state provisions as been requested by the administration, if we cite, is it correct then that the state would receive the penalty and the city would not? If there was a fine.
So this is my part where I remind you that our citations are not meant to be revenue generated.
Yeah, I
right?
understand that.
So if it's cited under Cleveland Codified Ordinance, then yes, Cleveland recovers a portion of those funds.
Yes.
But again, citations are not meant to be revenue generated. If it's cited only under the state code, then the state receives a portion of the funds and the city may not receive any. However, citations are not meant to be revenue generated.
I understand that. But that's one of the reasons why we have done it historically, because the city, where there was a fine, the city would receive the dollars versus the state. Okay? That's the reality. Okay? And you know that as well as I do. So at the end of the day, that's why we have taken these actions historically over the years. So, Mr. Chairman, the only other question that I would have in here, and again, because came in by departmental request, we understand there's an amendment here. We're hearing there's going to be an amendment. I'd like to hear what the amendment is.
Okay, actually, yeah, why don't we do the reading of the amendment and then, because he wants to.
Yeah, I want to know what that amendment is, because that might have a bearing.
And I'm going to have to temporarily, I got to take an important call,
Okay.
temporarily turn this over to Councilman McCormick. Remember, we got House Jones and Sniper and anybody else.
Thank you. Ordinance number 1023-2023 to amend sections 433.09, 605.04, 607.03, 607.04, 607.17, 617.02, and 625.05 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by various ordinances to repeal Section 607.13 and 607.18 of the Codified Ordinances with a proposed amendment. Because there are so many sections, I'm going to insert the proposed amendment when I get to that section.
Okay.
Ordinance 1023-2023, if passed by Council, would amend various sections of the Codified Ordinance in accordance with State Bill 288 and other current laws of the state of Ohio. CO Section 433.09 pertains to operating a motor vehicle while using an electronic wireless communication device. This section is being amended in accordance with SB 288 to address the danger of distracted driving by prohibiting the operation of a motor vehicle while physically holding or supporting the wireless device with any part of the body. There are exceptions to this outlined in CO section, in the CO section, such as for operators of emergency vehicles, making emergency calls to law enforcement, fire department, or other emergency agencies, entities, or use of the speakerphone function, use of voice-operated or hand-free operation, and using technology that physically or electronically connects to the motor vehicle. The full list of exceptions is included in CO Section 43.09, Section B. CO Section 433.09C indicates the penalties for violations of this section. The first offense of this section is an unclassified misdemeanor, and the court can impose a fine up to $150, which can be waived if the offender successfully completes a distracted driving safety course and submits this evidence to the court. Subsequent offenses within 2 years of the original violation can result in higher fines and license suspension. Other sections that have been updated to reflect current laws of the state of Ohio include disturbing a public meeting, Section 605.04, drug abuse, controlled substance possession and use, Section 607.03, possessing drug abuse instruments, Section 607.04, possession, manufacture, and sale of drug paraphernalia, Section 607.17, and this is where we will insert the amendment. In Section 1, at amended 607.17 D2, at the end of the subsection, add This section does not apply to any persons whose conduct was in accordance with RC Chapter 3780. End of amendment. Sales to and use by minors, alcohol, and securing public accommodations, Section 617.02. And changing petty theft to misdemeanor theft, Section 625.05. In addition, this legislation includes a proposed amendment. The amendment includes, as I mentioned, the following changed to the following section, 60717 D2, possession, manufacture, sale of drug paraphernalia, which again ensures that a person is not penalized for possessing paraphernalia that is permitted by the ORC. 3780 adult use cannabis. For example, cultivation materials for home grow. That would not fall into that section.
Thank you, Director. Councilman?
I wish we would have that amendment for us, each of us, because I'm really confused.
It's on the tablet. We do.
Where's the amendment on the tablet?
Right there. That's what he just read that. He just read that.
So as it pertains to the public meeting, go back to the public meeting. Are there any changes proposed for that?
Director?
Public gathering.
Yes, the public meeting section.
Could you please speak into the microphone so the listening audience can hear you?
Let me get to the section.
It's under executive summary on the tablet.
If through the councilman, through the chair.
Yes.
The section 605.04, disturbing a lawful meeting.
Yes.
Is the section which we're referencing. All of those items that are underlined there are items that are being added to that particular section. If you would like, we can certainly.
Wait a minute, I'm going through this now, because this is, I wish you would have had this beforehand. Okay, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
You beginning section 605.04.
Yes.
Item B, it is added, disturbing a lawful meeting is a misdemeanor of the first degree if either of the following applies. The violation is committed with the intent to disturb or disquiet an assemblage of people met for religious worship at a tax-exempt place of worship, regardless of whether the conduct is within the place at which the assemblage is held or is at the property of which that place is located and disturbs the order and solemnity of the assemblage. Or, number two, the violation is committed with the intent to prevent, disrupt, or interfere with a virtual meeting or gathering of people for religious worship through use of a computer system, telecommunications device, or other electronic device or system in any other manner.
So your amendment, Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, so the city's amendment broadens it? That's what I'm not clear on. Broadens this or what? The definition?
That would be correct. It would also provide clarity to what was already there.
Okay. So, let me see what else I got here. Well, again, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go back to the opening one again, as you've indicated, possession of a mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
What you're proposing, does it broaden it or reduce the penalty?
I'm going to ask City prosecutor.
Through the chair to the councilman, it broadens it in some ways. Initially, as it's stated right now, under Cleveland Codified ordinance, it's only a minor misdemeanor
Yes.
offense. There's no progressive escalation of it. What it does once it's the state code was amended was it provides it in some ways as it is an unclassified misdemeanor, but it provides options for it to escalate. However, it also provides the option that for the very first offense, a distracted driving course can be taken and no
Okay.
fine is assessed.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the explanation. I'm sure I have some other questions, but I'm stopping to let my other colleagues jump in here.
Okay. Did we get House Jones and Slight
No,
yet?
no.
House Jones?
Thank you to the chairman, to the team that's here. So there were 2 points that we were talking about in conversations. The one is for the texting and driving. So the effective date was April of last year for the distracted driving. The first report, which was the inclusion of race and things of that nature, is supposed to be released on January 31st of this year. But the reporting, it's not outlined what exactly would be reported on, and the report is supposed to come from the Ohio Department of Public Safety to the General Assembly. We don't know if it's going to be public and just a lot of different things. And so, I mean, part of the thing is just looking as we hopefully just embrace what someone else does, looking at the actual how it actually is executed, right? So there may be some things that we would want to do to even publicly see, what the impact of this is. And so my question is, what are our current public-facing disclosures when it comes to a race and things of that nature? Does the city of Cleveland currently report on those things according to race, and is it publicly available to the public?
Does anybody have that answer?
To the chair, to Councilwoman House Jones, when we being the Division of Police, effectuate a traffic stop, part of the information that we capture is race. That's part of what, as you're aware, we do capture that. Now, as far as the public-facing information about that I'll have to follow up on. It's publicly facing that we do stop individuals for their various offenses, but reporting on race, that's something I'll have to check on, but we do capture that information.
And in response, through the chair to the councilwoman, currently the City of Cleveland Prosecutor's Office does not have a docketing system that allows us to capture that information. We are researching options for a docketing system that would allow that information to be captured. In terms of whether or not it's public records, I think that's a question better answered by someone else in the law department. But full transparency, right now, we, as a prosecutor's office, do not have that ability.
Okay, yeah, I know a lot of times we don't, because there's a whole, the Ohio Supreme Court, back in, it's been a while now, it might have, anyway, probably 2013, they had a report on the data disconnect in our criminal justice system in particularly. And so, again, there are things like this where if we are trying to share information with the public and stuff, we should have a baseline and not necessarily just tell people, allow others outside to dictate to us how that information should be reported. So that's one thing. The other thing is regarding the disturbing and lawful meeting. The way that is written now in Section 605, what we are proposing now, it creates two different standards of disturbances of a lawful meeting. Do we actually have a definition of what disquiet or disturb means in our codes of ordinances? Codified ordinance.
Assistant Director or Prosecutor?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I do not know that off the top of my head. I can research that and get back to you.
So that was one of the questions. I mean, part of the issue and the challenge when Councilwoman Councilman Starr and Gray and I were thinking about a reason why we are putting something in our code that specifically says the violation is committed with the intent to disturb or disquiet any assemblage, but we don't even have a definition of what disturb or disquiet is. And then it brings up the level of subjectivity when we think about our criminal justice system. And when many times when you are looking at actually implementing many of the rules that we have on board, what you will find the disproportionate nature of the enforcement when it comes to Black and brown individuals. And if we do not even have a definition of what it is, it's only based on what a person can think. Furthermore, when you look at in that section of 605, you create two different classes, one for generally disturbing a lawful meeting, and then the second one will be what the state adopted is disturbing a lawful meeting within a religious assembly. And so again, some other people could think, well, why would a religious group get special considerations versus general people? You know what I'm saying? And these are part of the things of like, with all of these varying different, it's 6 different legislative topics that are all in this one ordinance. And some of these are very much more in depth that I think that this body should look at, and we had talked about they really should be looked at separately, not just all lumped in together just because the state. And so that was the third point of where Councilwoman Gray, Starr, and I thought that when we have just such depth and breadth, this body should probably look at them as individual legislations, and that for all that reasons, that's the reason why we said no. But it would be really helpful if we were putting something in our laws. If we don't have a definition of it, we're a legislative body. We should actually do that before we actually pass anything, whether it was something recommended by the law department or not. And while there may be recommendations by the law department, Cleveland City Council is the actual legislative body.
Eddie Coulter and Chief.
Through the chair to the council person, your points are well taken, and I would just respond by, we bring this to the table really with the understanding and hope that, this body can amend. So that is certainly something that we open the door for the council to either break apart those pieces that make a lot of sense to move forward with. If there are other parts that you would like further review or discussion on, that certainly is your option to suggest that.
Yeah, that he just read. In there, thing that you're reading in now. All right, Chief.
To the chair, to the council member, House Jones, I appreciate the words that you gave, and certainly we do understand your point. For this particular ordinance, which is the disturbing lawful meeting, it's strictly, as you're aware, you articulated about a tax-exempt religious organization that this is pertaining to, and again, this is just trying to get our ordinances aligned with the state ordinances to just be in alignment. So I certainly understand what you're saying relative to your concerns, but again, this is for a tax-exempt religious organizations.
Anything anybody else want to add? Councilwoman House Jones. Okay. Councilwoman House Jones is finished. Councilman Charlie Slife.
Thank you, and through the chair, I've been back and forth on this one a lot. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride for me, and my hang-up is also the disturbing a lawful meeting. And I think that the context, as I understand it, is important. Previously in state law, disturbing a lawful meeting is a 4th-degree misdemeanor. That's currently what's in the city code. My understanding is that there was an incident at a Catholic Mass at the Cathedral in Columbus that a disturbance that prompted the introduction of legislation that changed the disturbing of a lawful meeting, a religious meeting, to be a 1st-degree misdemeanor, which is punishable by a $1,000 fine and 180 days in jail versus $250 and 30 days in jail, if I think I have that correct. So I agree that updating city code to align with state law is by and large a wise thing to do, but I don't want to fall for the assumption that state law is infallible. And I guess come along with me on an analogical adventure, but suppose I'm walking down Euclid Avenue and I see Richard Starr and I punch him in the face. My understanding is I would probably be charged with simple assault. If I were to punch my friend Jason, who's a Protestant minister, in the face, I would not be charged with felonious assault because he's a minister. I would be charged with simple assault because you can't punch people in the face. And my worry is that state law now seems to favor a certain class of lawful meetings to the detriment of others. So it suggests that it's really, the concern is the Establishment Clause. It's suggesting that a meeting of a political party or a city council meeting or a Kiwanis Club is of lesser value than a religious meeting. And I'm not alone in this. In the testimony at the State House, I believe on the Senate, the ACLU submitted a letter, and I'll summarize this, but it says that this law ignores the mandated neutrality, the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, by selecting one category of gatherings and meetings, religious ones, and bestowing upon them additional protections. By doing so, this sends the unmistakable signal to everyone else that religious gatherings and meetings are special, better than secular gatherings or meetings, and deserve more attention from government. Now, to be abundantly clear, I'm a religious person. I believe that it is offensive and objectionable to burst into a religious service and disturb it. But my concern is having something in city code that suggests that we are favoring religion over non-religion, given the First Amendment. That is my hang-up. I will let them respond. I concede that regardless of this legislation, Cleveland police can cite under state law. So I acknowledge that. But my worry is if someone were charged with this under city law, so please react to everything that I've said, but a specific question. If we were to charge someone with a first-degree misdemeanor under city code for disturbing a religious meeting, and they were to sue the city of Cleveland under the Establishment Clause, are we now financially liable and subjecting ourselves to litigation for a law that I think has some credibility issues from the forefront?
Ms. Jordan, AD Coulter, or Ms. Melnick, if you guys want to respond.
So I'll defer to Ms. Melnick in terms of the liability issue, right? And I receive your points, all of your points and your feedback, but I do want to point out that, and not saying religion is any different, but there are certain carve-outs, and I'm going to use your example, right? You're walking down the street and you punch Councilperson Starr in the face. You're absolutely correct. Misdemeanor assault. However, if you're walking down the street and you punch Mr. Starr in the face because he's black, now we've gone to ethnic intimidation. So within our law already, we have carve-outs that allow things to be escalated for certain reasons, right? So that's already present on other offenses for that same example. So however the council decides, I just want to point that out.
My reaction to that is religion is a protected class, religion is not a protected class? That's a question.
Anybody want to?
Through the chairperson to the council member Slade, I think there's a couple important things to kind of really note when it comes to this piece. First of all, I mean, obviously we respect the First Amendment, freedom to speech. We also respect an individual's right to practice religion. And anytime you're dealing with First Amendment law, it's often complicated and in fact specific. So sometimes you want answers to specific questions, right? But it really depends on the certain facts, right? So as far as liability, first of all, anybody can sue the city. The people sue the city all the time and they don't have a great legal basis, right? Whether the city is going to be liable really just depends on the particular facts. So I don't want to get out of ahead and say, oh, yes, we're going to be liable, or no, we're not. I don't know what the...
It's an abstract question. I guess I am, to my colleagues, is this motivated by culture wars in Columbus? And are we motivated by culture wars in Columbus, I think is the question that I am grappling with myself.
I mean, You asking me what comes out of Columbus Culture Wars? I would say it's a bunch of that stuff that come out.
Yeah, it is. When you look
So
at
definitely, I would
It
agree
is.
with you with that. The thing that, and I know that Councilman House wants to make a comment. The only thing that I'm struggling with is whether we do this or don't do this, they could still charge it. And it may be a great value statement to say we don't agree or we don't support with this, but if they can still charge under these codes, then what are we stopping? And I may want to redress this the right way, but I would trust the fairness of Prosecutor Jordan than to trust the fairness of state law. And that's what I'm struggling with, to try to see that if she's thrown these cases, then people are going to get charged under the same law anyway. She's probably, I can't speak for her, she'll probably won't hold them to that high of a standard if I know how she operates. But I hear your point, is this driven by culture wars at the state level? And I would say maybe so. Does that prevent me from looking at potentially moving this forward, especially when they could still charge? That's my question. But Councilwoman House Jones and then anybody else. Okay? Did you guys want to respond to that? Because I think that the concern that I'm hearing is because state law is so much stricter and so much harsher and could be driven by other factors that are not good in the best interest of Cleveland. How does this impact and affect us?
And to the chair and the body, I think that's why the administration is so respectful of the job you all do, right? I appreciate the respect and faith you have in me, but as a body, you move in spite of me, right? You as a body understand I may not always be in this seat, and so you're putting safeguards in place for the citizen to make sure that, heaven forbid, you get a prosecutor that's not me, that the citizens of Cleveland are still safe. And I think part of this dialogue is so that all of us can understand that, right? We're dealing with the equitable administration of criminal justice 100 years from now, not just now.
Right.
And that's what you're laying the foundation of, and that's what this conversation helps to point out to each other, to the administration, and to the community. That this is a conversation, dialogue that doesn't end whether this legislation passes or not, but that you're all going to hold everyone accountable to those high ethical standards.
To the chair, if I can also add to Chief Prosecutor Jordan's sentiments. She's absolutely right. It's also incumbent upon the Division of Police to make sure through this process that through our procedural justice that we are treating people, no matter what their political or religious backgrounds are, we'll treat them with dignity and respect and apply the laws evenly. That comes from, again, our instructions through the academy, through our training, through our supervisors, and all the way down to our patrol officers. If they deal with a situation like this, again, that they're consulting with their training, consulting with their supervisors, and ultimately, if a decision is made to arrest someone based on this, we also go to the city prosecutor's office to make sure that what we're doing is in comports and in line with the First Amendment, and also with our policies and codified ordinances.
Okay. All right, Councilman House, did you have anything? All right, any other questions regarding ordinance number 1023-2023?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman, Councilman Spencer, and then come back.
Actually, I'll
Councilman Palencia.
Yeah, I just want to follow up, Mr. Chairman, on your comment. And I'm not really too worried about the ACLU. It's up to them. There be no religious services, okay, period. That's my opinion. If you have to read the piece, it's a nonprofit religious organization. Now, I would like to believe that nobody around this table wants to see a legitimate nonprofit organization services disrupted. But even if it was, and if we don't take this action, as the council president, you could still cite under state statute. So I would say any religious organization watching this, remember this section, 605.04. If your religious event is disrupted, your service, your gathering, you would ask that the police officers would cite under that section. I think it's outrageous for anyone to want to go in and disrupt a religious organization in this state. I don't care what the faith, where you live. I mean, I think it's just outrageous that someone would even consider doing that. And if they do that, then they should be held accountable for those actions, Mr. Chairman. That's my position. And, I just think, you know, we can nitpick this stuff to death, but at the end of the day, it's about protecting people. It's about protecting organizations. And in this section, protecting legitimate nonprofit religious organizations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I had Councilwoman Spencer and Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask a couple of procedural questions, I think through you to our chair, the other side of the table. I'm really hearing the concerns that our colleagues brought forth in the Safety Committee. I'm wondering why not? Why can't this piece be broken out as separate pieces of legislation? Is there a time sensitivity to it, or is there a reason that that cannot occur?
Mr. Coulter.
To the councilperson through the chair, that is the power of the council to amend what is being brought before you. As far as the time sensitivity and the other option, I'll throw that on the table, is you can certainly hold this. And I'm not the counsel for the legal counsel for council, but those certainly are options that you have in front of you. I'll speak to or ask our Stephanie to also comment on this, but our desire is to get something that works. So expediency is not the issue here, is to get something that reflects what we want it to be, and that through that joint process, we think this can be shaped to certainly reflect what we're all saying. So getting it right is better than doing it quick.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I was a little confused by some of the conversation earlier. Is there an additional amendment being put forward today, or is it there's an explanation in our tablets? There's an explanation document. Can I be directed to, through the chair, what this amendment?
So Assistant Director Coulter has submitted a couple of amendments today. Okay.
But those have not yet been read.
Yes.
They were read.
They were read.
Yes,
Okay.
it was
Okay.
through the chair to the council person in section 607.17, there was a small amendment that we were recommending for today. That's the only amendment being recommended today. Ms. Melnick, did you have something you wanted to add, please?
Through the council person to the councilwoman, and just to clarify too, with that amendment that was read, I mean that is we're asking council to consider that amendment. You would still, a council member would need to actually move for the amendment and to approve it, and that amendment is really just really. So I'm going to step back a little bit to give a little sense of why this amendment is being proposed. So this legislation was drafted and it was introduced back in August 2023, right? Many things have changed in that, 7-month period. One of them is that, the voters passed issue 2, legalizing marijuana in certain circumstances. So all this amendment is doing is recognizing that under state law, specifically provisions in the new chapter, I think it's chapter 3780, is that we want to make sure that nobody's going to be penalized. We want to be clear that any drug paraphernalia that is legal under state law now as a result of issue 2 is also not criminalized under our code. So that's the intent of this amendment.
Okay. And I'll direct my comments to our chair. It's very unusual to have a piece not recommended for passage out of committee. And given the complexity of this piece and that there is not apparent tremendous time sensitivity to it, I don't have comfort with voting in favor of passage today on this piece.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Council President. I would be brief, as well as to the members of the Finance Committee. My really only major concern and question that I have as regard to this is, if this is something that is already in place on a state level and you can be already ticketed on these citations, then what is the point for us to hear it at council if it's already something that can be cited for through the chair?
Could you, I know that Councilman Starr wasn't here earlier when you guys reiterated that. Could you reiterate that if you could?
Yes, through the council president to the council men. So this, at the beginning of the council meeting, I just issued that overall reminder that individuals can be cited under state code or the local ordinance, in our case, Cleveland Codified ordinance. It's not always that they're the same or similar, but they should be, right? This gives Cleveland City police officers the option to cite under Codified ordinance as opposed to the state code. Now, this is where I also give my reminder. Citations are not meant to be revenue generating, right? We all have to be clear and on the same page as that. However, there is a fund breakdown of where the monies go based on what they're citing under, right? So if they're cited under state code, then if there are fines associated with that, it goes to the state. If they're cited under the city code, if there are fines associated with that, then the portions that are entitled to the city go to the city. But again, citations are not meant to be revenue generating. I cannot stress that point enough. They are not meant to be revenue generating.
And then my last point, thank you for that, for clarification through the chair. My last point is that the question that I raised in committee when I voted no was, do we have any data from accidents or tickets that show that there's an increase of accidents because of this communication electronic device that is being used? And one of the things that I posed in the committee is this more so like a targeted demographics of people? Because we often want our streets to be safe. We want people to drive responsibly. But do we have any data that shows that this needs to be in place as regards to this texting or this electronic device that I have requested? Through the chair.
To the chair, to Councilman Starr, I was at the table when you asked that question. We did, I believe, and I have to double check, I should have this answer before answering, but I believe we've provided the data relative to the amount of citations issued for distracting driving, because we have issued that, but that is not broken down by race. It's important to note it's not broken down by race, but we did provide, I believe, to council the number of citations that were issued for distracted driving.
But to Council President, I don't recall receiving that information. I know they had a data that they had from the summertime, but I was talking specifically of a breakdown, because when you pull data, you can make data show anything that you want, but to get the understanding of who we are looking at or what is going on as far as the distraction drivers, that is something that is very important before we start making amendments and passing legislation. That's something that is very important to me, as well as others, I believe, because if it's showing that it's only a certain age group that is being targeted, or we need to at least be able to understand and have supporting documents to say this is making sense or it doesn't make sense. And also, just for the record, everything that they do downstate is not always the right thing. And that is something that we are dealing with on a local level, because state laws get passed, and then next you know, we quick to jump on it and say it makes sense for our city too. So that's one of some of the reasons why I was opposed of this and why it was a 3-3 vote in safety committee. So I just leave that open and for any comments through the chair.
Chief, can we do this? Because I really see this spending a lot of time on this. I would like, because if we take an action today and it doesn't get voted through, then it's dead. Let's table it. Any of the members that want to sit down with any of the four that you see here to go over the questions that you have, let's revisit it that way, and then we'll reconsider it in another week, okay? Because I want to make sure that council members get their questions answered, and just everybody knows the state is not always our friend, and that's why I want to make sure that between making sure that we understand why is it so important for us to do this, or if there is a recommendation on the table to potentially maybe break them out into individual pieces. I know that we have passed these pretty routinely in the past, but I want to reiterate that a lot of council members you know, they're here to ask questions and make sure that they vet it, and just because that's how we did it in the past doesn't mean that it's always right. So we want to make sure we look at why we're passing this, and then if you guys can open us up to any more questions, let us know, okay? But I don't want to take an action today, just so that this council doesn't feel like we rushed it through, that we actually took our time, okay? All right, thank you. We're going to table this. Yeah, I'm going to go through those now.
Are you holding
and then I'm going to hold it.
Okay.
Hold it. Let me make sure that the clear language. I am holding this piece, and I'm going to try to give it one more week and so that anybody can get any more questions answered that they need, okay? Thank you. All right. Okay. I actually do as well. I'm going to turn over the meeting to Councilman McCormick because I actually have to go to a very important meeting for a brief minute. Councilman McCormick.
Which one do you want to address?
All right, Director, why don't we jump on it, 1379. All right, so this is ordinance 1379, 2023 by council members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for the fiscal year 22 Project Safe Neighborhoods Grant, and authorizing one or more contracts with Mental Health Services for Homeless Persons, Inc., doing business as Frontline Services, and the Near West Side Multi-Service Corporation, doing business as the May Dugan Center to implement the grant. Director?
Thank you. Ordinance 1379, 2023, if approved by City Council, would authorize the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant in the amount of $19,329.80 from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for the FY22 Project Safe Neighborhoods Grant. Funding will be used to fund a homicide review commission. Members of the Division of Police and County Prosecutor's Office meet monthly to review both open and closed cases. These in-depth case reviews of homicides examine the victims, offenders, associates, witnesses, circumstances, and settings of all homicide events. The purpose of the Cleveland Homicide Review Commission is to solve homicides in a more efficient and effective manner, gain a better understanding of homicide through strategic problem solving, to develop innovative and effective responses and prevention strategies that result in a reduction of homicides, and to help better focus available prevention and intervention resources. For 2023, there were 13 cases that were reviewed by the HRC. 2023 end of year solve rate was 75%. The number of homicides dropped by 1% from 2022 to 2023. The grant budget is broken down as follows. Personnel, $3,797.90. That's for overtime for detectives' work on the HRC. $13,000 in contracts, which is for witness relocation services. $1,800 for equipment. $731.90 for supplies. For the total of $19,329.80. This is the fourth year we have received this grant. There is no local match, and the grant period runs from October 1st of 2023 through September 31st of 2024. Deputy Chief Pillow, as well as our grants guru, Darn Hot Song, is at the table, and we're happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate that. Councilman Polensek, this was reviewed and
Yes.
recommended for passage in the Committee on Safety.
Yes, it was. We discussed it extensively, and it was voted on unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have any questions on 1379, 2023?
Yes.
Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. Through the chair to the table, I see in the budget you have personnel contracts, equipment supplies, et cetera. Do we use any of these grant funds to support the Crime Stoppers, or that or is that provided, or do we provide support in any other ways?
To the chair, no, this grant is not for Crime Stoppers.
Right, I know that, but I'm asking, grants like these, because we see these all the time, right? So I know this one in particular is not to support Crime Stoppers, but do we, at times when we apply for these grants, do we include line items for Crime Stoppers out of these?
Through the chair, I do not recall applying for a grant for Crime Stoppers. They have their own funding sources.
Right, not, again, through the chair to the table. I'm not asking whether we apply for a grant specifically for Crime Stoppers. As we have line items in the grant budget, do we include at times money for Crime Stoppers in addition to personnel, contracts, and equipment? That's no.
The answer, through the chair to the council person, to date, to our understanding, we have not applied for grants, including Crime Stoppers, as a direct line item.
Thank you, sir.
In those requests. So.
Okay. And is there, through the chair, lastly, is there a reason for that? Do we not? Or we just let them kind of do their thing. We do ours, and we just try to tailor the grant budgets to the police officers' needs or the department's needs.
Yeah, I don't have a direct answer for that. Okay. I don't think there's any reason why we would not or we would. I don't know that the relationship has called for that type of support of what it is they do. But I don't have an explanation for why we would or would not have worked with them.
And thank you to the chair. And I see the commander has want to make a comment, but only because I know this is for to help with homicide cases, right? And so when I think homicide, I think Crime Stoppers.
Through the chair to the councilman, sir, when we reviewed our greatest need, Crime Stoppers does an amazing job with getting that information and allocating funds to people who provide that information. When we reviewed our needs, we had a far greater need to be able to assist victims or witnesses of homicide. Okay. So that's what we directed our attention and our funding to. Okay. We didn't have anything like that in place. We found an opportunity for it through these resources, and that's what we funded it towards.
That makes sense. No, I get it. I'm just trying to understand, because Crime Stoppers is a big part of, solving these homicides as well, right?
It is, and I don't want to speak too far into it, but I do know that there is a push by the administration to partner with Crime Stoppers through private entities and other businesses. So there are conversations going on towards supporting Crime Stoppers.
Sure, I appreciate that. I know our president has a piece that was introduced or going to be introduced that he is trying to support Crime Stoppers with some additional dollars, which is a good thing. But I'm just looking at the budget, and I just see relocation services for victims or witnesses. And so that's just something that popped in my head of why or why not, why don't we add those into the budget line item requests when we submit these grants. But moving on from that, so the relocation, who provides the witness relocation services? Do we contract with someone? Does that done through the department?
Yes, through the chair to the council member, we're contracting with Frontline Services and with the May Dugan Center.
And May Dugan, okay. Is that done by RFP? How is that process? What's that process? Do we just kind of do a straight award to them?
Well, through the chair to the councilman, this legislation gives us the authority to enter into those contracts with them.
Through the chair, how do we choose them? We just call them
Through the chair,
up?
because we have a relationship with them. They already provide these services, so it's continuing the program that's already in operation.
Okay, thank you.
If I might add, sir, before we started allocating funds from these grants, those partners were who primarily assisted us. CMHA would assist if it was involving a CMHA property, but if not, Frontline Services and May Dugan for years have assisted us with providing resources to witnesses or victims in terms of relocating, whether temporarily or long-term. And they did it through their own funding. And so once we identified the ability to assist them with that, that's why we dedicated those funds and utilize them as partners.
Completely understand. Just wondering how that process works. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have additional questions on 1379, 2023? Hearing none, 1379, 2023 is approved. Please sign. Director, 1380, 2023, by Council Members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for the fiscal year 23 Recovery Ohio LE program to provide funding for the operation of the Cartel Gang Narcotics Laundering Task Force. Director.
Good afternoon. 1380-2023. The goal of the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Service Recovery, Ohio LE grant, is to provide funding to law enforcement agencies for operating multi-agency task forces. The City of Cleveland will be reimbursed for costs associated with operating the Division of Police's Cartel Gang Narcotics Laundering Task Force, Signal, formerly known as the Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force. The Signal is a multi-agency drug task force that brings together state, federal, and local agents and investigators to ensure the most sophisticated investigation and prosecution resources are directed against organized drug trafficking groups. There will be a special focus on preventing overdose deaths. Signal will be partnering with the Cleveland Division of Police Heroin-Involved Death Investigation Team, HIDA, to conduct investigations and prosecutions of drug traffickers responsible for selling fatal doses of narcotics to their victims. Signal will also partner with the Alcohol, Drug, and Addiction and Mental Health Services, the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County, Project Dawn, and Metro Health. The Signal will receive a supply of fentanyl test strips along with recovery treatment literature from the Adams Board and a supply of Narcan safe use kits from Project Dawn and Metro Health. The Signal will be sharing this supply with the HIDA team. These testing strips give users the ability to easily and quickly test their narcotics to determine if the product contains fentanyl. The user will then know that what they may have thought to be crack cocaine actually contains lethal fentanyl. The Project Dawn safe use kits contain Narcan that could prevent an overdose death from occurring. The budget breakdown is as follows. Personnel, $47,250. Again, police officer overtime. Travel, $5,000. That's related to cases and training. Equipment, $3,000. Narcan and safe use kits. Supplies, $500. Other costs totaling $4,299.96, including vehicle maintenance and cell phone data plans, and confidential funds, i.e. buy money surveillance costs, for $20,000, for a total of $80,000, 49.96. This grant period is from October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. And again, there is no local match. We have at the table Lieutenant Kincaid, co-commander of the Signal Unit, and Dawn Hartson to help answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. Lieutenant, anything to add?
Through the chair to the council, just briefly, I'd like to say that this grant is important to the task force. This helps with our prevention and treatment component of the work that we try to do. It helps our investigators get out to community meetings, pass out these kits and strips, even on the scenes of overdoses where they are very likely to encounter somebody else that might be suffering from addiction. So this grant is important to us, and we appreciate council support in the past.
Thank you so much. Councilman Polensek, this went through the Safety Committee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we heard this committee, and after extensive discussion, we also are very much aware of the growing problem in the city, and I believe at the committee we're told that we're 321 heroin/fentanyl deaths in the city of Cleveland in 2023. So we're very much aware of the situation, and that's why we overwhelmingly supported it.
Thank you, Councilman. Really terrifying number. Alrighty, what questions do I have on 1380-2023? Hearing none, 1380-2023 is approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I've got 72, 2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into an agreement with the National Forum for Black Public Administrators and AmeriCorps Vista for the placement of an intern in the Department of Finance, Division of Information Technology Services to provide support for the city's broadband initiative for a period of 1 year. Whoever's going to kick us off.
To the chair, to the committee, I'm going to turn this over to Kim Wilson. She can introduce the rest of the people at the table, and she can kind of go over this piece.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council Chair, committee members. I will start off by introducing this piece of legislation with posing 3 questions and answering those questions, along with deferring to my colleague Ricardo Renezo, who will speak more specifically to the role of the AmeriCorps Vista. What is the NFBPA? The National Forum for Black Public Administrators is the principal and most progressive organization dedicated to the advancement of black public leadership in local and state governments. Its members include city and county managers, department directors, program administrators, and other leaders who are skilled in all areas of local government management. What is an AmeriCorps Vista? Founded in 1965, Volunteers in Service to America, VISTA, is an anti-poverty program designed to provide needed resources to nonprofit organizations and public agencies to increase their capacity to lift communities out of poverty. And finally, what is the relationship between NFBPA and the AmeriCorps Vista? NFBPA has expanded its national impact and reach through AmeriCorps Vista. Vista members will be working on a variety of projects, including public-private partnerships, needs assessments, relationship development with stakeholders, citizen engagement, and work with volunteers and consultants in the field. NFBPA has brought on 10 VISTA members in a variety of locations. A VISTA lead in Washington, D.C., 2 members in Washington, D.C., to build national public and private partnerships, 3 members in South Florida, and 4 members in Northeast Ohio to manage projects on a local level tailored to meet the unique needs of the community. At this time, I will defer to Ricardo Renezo, our DEI manager, who will speak specifically regarding the role of the VISTA.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair to the committee. So thanks to City Council's legislation passage of Digital C and Sci-Fi in the fall of this past year, this year, 2024, is an unprecedented sea change for broadband in Cleveland. Last fall, the city was also recognized for the first time ever as a digital inclusion trailblazer by the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, only further shining the spotlight on how committed we collectively are to closing the digital divide in Cleveland. So much so that the VISTA volunteer we would get specifically asked to come to Cleveland to help in our efforts. I met him this past Friday, as a matter of fact, and he reaffirmed his commitment to our broadband efforts. Leveraging his energy, his skill set, and his commitment to this cause will only help us get there sooner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any additional comments before we turn it over to the panel?
The chair and the council members, our DEI program is still in its early stages. Mr. Reynoso has only been with the city for the past year as our first DEI manager, but it has taken a hold, not only in our partnerships with Digital C, but promoting programs such as our modernization of our rec centers and other initiatives across the administration. So this intern will be very, very valuable in helping him move the city forward in our digitization capabilities.
Great, thank you so much. And it appears there is zero cost to the city for this AmeriCorps Vista. Looks like a home run to me. Any questions on 72, 2024? Wonderful, thank you so much. 72, 2024 is approved. Please sign. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and our final piece for today is ordinance number 75, 2024 by Councilmember Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to employ 1 or more professional consultants or vendors for the purpose of providing emergency medical billing services, coding, reimbursement, and compliance services for the Division of Assessments and Licenses, Department of Finance for a period of 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Finance.
Through the chair to the committee, yes, we're seeking approval to go out for an RFP for EMS billing services. The city has contacted all major cities in the state, 10 bigger cities, Columbus, Cincinnati, Akron, Toledo, Dayton, Canton, Lorraine, Youngstown, and Parma. None of those are doing this in-house anymore. That's kind of went by the wayside. The regulations change so frequently with Medicaid and Medicare and all these billings, and that's where we are getting most of our revenue from, is out of Medicare and Medicaid. There are some insurance companies, but compliance with that's become a really tricky issue with the city. We had an audit with Medicaid. We didn't do too well. We had a second audit with Medicaid. Didn't go that well. We're appealing the second audit with Medicaid right now. We believe we have some external compliance experts that looked at our claims before we submitted them. So we believe we're correct. We have not got an answer on our appeal. But this has changed so much with compliance that we fall further behind. We're having a really hard time getting billers. We tried in 2022. We had 14 candidates submit. Ultimately, we were able to hire 1 out of 14. Most of them said we're not paying enough. So we looked at this. We're competing with, the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospital, a lot of medical, entities for these billers. So we're seeking approval to go out, to go forward on medical billing and collection externally, as well as to catch up the backlog, because we have a little bit over 50,000 in claims right now. We're normally around 10,000, so we're about 40 additional thousand kind of behind. So we're trying to catch that up. We're trying to recognize the revenue. We're just trying to gain some efficiency in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm looking at the request is a 3-year professional services contract with 2 one-year options to renew. Is it the intent to completely remove this from the city, meaning you've got a 5-year contract here and you're going to be back in 5 years? Or is this a temporary scenario to catch up? What is the intent?
Yeah, to the chair and the committee members, this is a permanent solution. Again, the 10 bigger cities in Ohio they're not doing this anymore. And we reached out to each of those cities. Again, the complexity of the billing, the ability to meet compliance is becoming more challenging. So this is going to be a permanent. So after the 5 years, or after the 3 years, we'll evaluate how well the biller's doing. If they're not doing good, we'll come back sooner, because we won't exercise those options. We're going to be looking at our revenue stream. We're going to be looking at our compliance. We're going to be looking at our audit results to make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
And so there's no cost on this. How do they charge the city? Is it an annual fee? Is it hourly?
Yeah, through the chair to the committee member, we haven't gotten back their cost quote yet. Most of them will charge a percentage of collection, and we'll kind of negotiate that. That's kind of the standard right now with these collectors. So based on the better they do collecting for you, the better they're going to do. So that kind of motivates them a little bit more to try to collect, if it's applicable to do so.
Thank you. And how does the conversation on Medicaid, is the issue there that the Medicaid regulations are changing so frequently the city can't keep up with them, doesn't have the capacity? Is that kind of, because we don't bill Medicaid as much as we should. Is that accurate for these services?
To the chair, to the council person, to committee, it does change quite a bit. We're having a hard time getting billers, honestly. So it's a multi-pronged problem that we're facing. We can't really get billers because, compared to what other people are paying, we're just nowhere near what medical billers are making. Compliance changes so rapidly, the training of these employees to keep them up to speed to the new compliance. Our audit basically is saying we're upcharging because our auditors, again, we disagree with the audit findings on the second audit, and we've appealed it, so we're waiting on a final response, because what they're saying is our billers are upcharging these to make them more Medicaid compliant or billable. Now, we disagree with that, and we have a third party, a legal firm that's a specialist that we do send these to check. Now, again, they're not doing collection, they're not doing billing, they're just looking at these by way of compliance to make sure that we can pass our audit with Medicaid.
Okay. And then, the last question I have is around how do we control the work of this? Let me give you an example. The school district farms out their taxation, when they object to the taxation level of somebody to a third-party law firm who is also motivated by getting as much as they can. I've had horror stories in my community of my residents who own one other property, mom and pop type landlords that rent the other property out, that are the best properties on that block because they live in our neighborhood. They've paid their full taxes, and the school district said, oh, we know that you paid your levied taxes, just kidding. We think you should have paid a whole lot more, and this law firm goes after my residents who are not lawyers, who don't have a ton of money to fight them, and shame on this law firm that the school district puts out there that does that. Because they're going after my residents who are middle class, who own one other property. So how do we prevent, I agree that every insurance dollar that we can collect for the city, we absolutely should. But if there's a senior that can't navigate the system or lapsed on insurance, how do we prevent this firm from going after them when they've tried to do the right thing or did the right thing? And so how do we prevent that?
To the chair, to the committee members, I mean, we're going to have a manager housed at the city that's going to monitor the firm. So there will be an EMS manager.
Okay.
Right now, it's housed in risk management, and I think that's where it's going to be housed going forward. So there's a manager, there's the commissioner, Ed Romero. They will monitor this. Now, for people that can't afford the EMS billing, you already know that we have a sliding scale. So if you're a self-pay, and you can't afford it, there's relief. So we'll make sure that stays in place with the firm, and any problems that residents have with this firm, they should let us know, because we're not.
And I think that's part of the challenge. Is I would trust you. I would trust the city system on this. The challenge becoming when a third-party firm that's motivated by collecting as much as they can is now in control functionally. Does the lens that the city would use transfer to that third-party provider?
To the chair of the committee, we're going to have to make sure that it does. I mean, that's going to be our job in finance. That's going to be our job in risk management. So we'll be looking at this. We'll be looking at what they're billing. We'll be getting reports monthly from this firm. So we will be taking a look at all of this. And if there's anything.
Because or else they end up in my office crying because they're going to lose their property because the school district is going after them. Which is just a shame, shame, shame.
Oh, yeah, I totally
So
get it.
I know that's not city, that's the school district, but I don't want to create a system that repeats a similar situation like that. Okay, I've got Councilman Polensek on the list.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to Mr. Gentile. And I didn't get the other gentleman's name.
Jim Hartley.
What, say it again?
Jim Hartley.
Jim. Okay. Mr. Gentile, you've been here how long?
To the chair of the councilman, I started in February of 2002. This is my second term, though. I was here in 91 initially with Mayor Mike White for about 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
But I came back in 2002.
Do you recall how many people were in this section at one time?
To the chair of the councilperson, I think we peaked at about 15 people, I believe.
Okay. Because you've always been an honest person at this table, and I believe in transparency. So there were 15 people working on EMS billing, and based on my own research, you're right there. I couldn't identify exactly 15, but it was around that figure. Yeah. The whole process was set up as a result of the city implementing the EMS program in the early late 70s. I had come in just as the EMS has put in operational, so I'm very much aware of the process. So we have 15. How many people do we have now doing EMS billing?
To the chair of the councilperson, we have a couple of people that have attrited, so we're down to 5 people now. We had 8 like towards the end of 2023.
Yep.
We lost our 3 temps. Unfortunately, they got full-time jobs somewhere else.
Okay.
So we're down to 5 right now, full-time.
That's including supervision.
That includes 1 supervisor. Correct.
Right. So we've gone from 15 down to 5 with 1 supervisor. Now the administration is proposing we go outside with a private consultant to do EMS billing. You've indicated that there are 50,000 accounts receivable.
Through the chair, yeah, I mean, it changes every day, obviously, so it's approximately around 50,000 total
Okay.
claims that we're trying to process.
And this is because the 5 people that you have at present cannot process the claims, is that correct?
Through the chair, the person, yes, they can't process these, and we're also having some compliance issues with some of the processing.
Okay.
Double, but yes.
Yeah. So we had asked, council staff had asked for a report as it pertains to the number of claims and the outstanding dollar amount, estimated outstanding dollar amount, and we've yet to receive it.
To the chair of the council, I can get that to you. It's a little bit over 50,000 claims, and I think the outstanding balance is around a little bit over 13 million, like 13.2 million.
13 million.
Assuming that they're all approved by Medicare. Now, again, the
Okay.
approval rates.
Now, I got to tell you, this is outrageous. This is outrageous. Who's in charge of this section?
To the chairman, to the council person, I mean, the finance director is in charge of it.
Yes.
Right now, it's housed in risk management. So
It's
Ed
housed in where?
Risk management with Ed Romero.
Yeah. I would call it risky management. That's what I would call it. Okay? So Ed Romero is the guy in charge over this section.
To the chair, the council person, yes, for about the last year or so.
So we're owed approximately 13 million, 50,000 accounts receivable. We had 15 people at one time, and now we're down to 5, 1 supervisor. See, I was told it was 3. And now the administration's answer, rather than beefing up and rehiring and refilling these critical positions, now the answer is to go out for consultant. And Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, I am seeing this far too often, the issue with outside consultants. It's administration by consultant. And as the chair indicated, that consultant doesn't work for free. That consultant is going to get a portion of the 13 million. Now, I got to be very clear, and I've indicated to Council President, there is no way on God's green earth am I going to support this. Because we've raised this in the past to council about the billing. I can remember when it was 32,000. Now we're at 50,000. We stressed the point about hiring people to fill those vacancies and to do this in-house, as we've done it for God knows how long. But we can't hire, heaven forbid we would hire Cleveland residents. Now we want to go up to an outside consultant to administer this, who, again, is going to get paid. What percentage of the 13 million, I don't know. But there is no way I'm supporting this. I'm telling you right now, I'm not supporting this. I've told the council president I'm not supporting it. We got to draw the line in the sand on this stuff. I came in this body, to my honorable colleagues, I just came in when we just had got rid of our asphalt plant. We had just got rid of the sewer system. We had almost lost the water system. We lost the aquarium disappeared. We lost the zoo. We lost the transit system, all because of mismanagement. I am tired of giving up. I'm tired of giving stuff away. I would say respectfully through the chair and to you, Mr. Gentile, to the finance director, who I believe is a competent man, fix it. Fix it. Hire the people, and let's run it like it should be run. I'm tired of giving up. I'm tired of giving up a city work, city responsibilities to outside contractors. There's no excuse for this. You know what? Today, let me tell you something. Today, a story came out in the Daily Mail News, which I don't even know what the Daily Mail News is, but came out today, a story that Cleveland is one of the fastest shrinking cities in the country. They've listed us with Baltimore, St. Louis, Birmingham, and Detroit. We're one of the fastest shrinking cities in the country. We got to do things differently here. We got to do better management. We got to provide better services. 50,000 accounts receivable? Give me a break. I'm not supporting it. I urge my colleagues not to support it, and got to send a message. No longer, we can't be doing administration by consultant. Unacceptable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To the
Thank-
chair,
oh, go ahead.
to the chair, the council member, this is a multi-pronged problem. It's not just the employees. No major city in the state of Ohio is doing this. I mean, we contacted 10 cities, the 10 biggest cities. This is just something people aren't doing because the complexity, the inability to hire billers. So it's on one hand, yes, it's the staffing. Secondly, it's the complexity of the billing, and it's ever changing. And everybody's moved away with this. Every city in Ohio that we contacted has moved away from doing their own billing. So we're trying to just get in line with them on this one. I mean, this is one that I think makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't say everyone that comes around or is talked about makes sense, but we're an oddity here. We're way out, kind of like an outlier in this field. So again, I will say in 2022 we did make a big effort to ramp up the staffing.
Absolutely.
We put it out there. We had 14 candidates. When we talked to these candidates, it boiled down to we got one candidate that took a job here. Unfortunately, she didn't make it. She had some issues with other employees, whether they were her issues or the employee's issue. She didn't like the atmosphere. Again, it could have been her, it could have been the employee, so I'm not going to point fingers. We've hired temps in the past, and we tried to get them to stay full-time. So we have tried. We're to the point where no one else is doing it. We can't get the staffing. We're falling further and further behind. We're leaving dollars on the table. So this is one we want to kind of move on it to maximize dollars.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gentile, let's get right to the point.
Okay.
Employees believe it's a toxic work environment. They believe it's a toxic work. They've come up here. They've come up to council. Believe it's a toxic work environment, and if you're going to get people, you got to have a pleasant work environment, and you got to pay people a reasonable wage. It's funny, you guys can find money to pay these. I see these salaries that come before us. I just sit here and say, man, whoa, whoa, whoa. But when it comes to critical positions, we can't find the money. But I will tell you, it's a toxic work environment. That's what the employees tell us.
Right.
Okay?
And through the chair to the council, I understand what you're saying, and we've heard it too. We've gotten letters. We have made movements. This is some reason why we've moved this from assessments to risk management. We have different managers. We had 2 managers in there that several years ago were somewhat problematic. They both have moved on, either from their own volition or that. So we have looked at that. Again, I understand the employees. Some of the employees are still dissatisfied.
Mr. Gentile, you've been a longtime city employee, and you've always been honest to us at the table. You know it's a toxic work environment. Put it back in licenses and assessments where it should be. It should be back in licenses and assessments, and remove the toxic work environment and hire the people that we need to have in there to do the job. 50,000 accounts receivable is totally unacceptable. I mean, end of story. I mean, I'm not blaming you, but you know it's a toxic work environment. And the administration needs to fix it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Councilman Conwell.
Yeah, question to the controller. Mr. Gentile, you are the controller, right?
To the chair of the council, and yes, that's correct.
Pardon me?
Yes, sir. Right.
So, who is monitoring and controlling the accounts receivables? Was you? Did you look at it? Did you see it?
Through the chair of the council person, right now it's under Ed Romero. He's been doing it for a couple years. I look at it at my level. I'm not directly responsible for EMS billing, but as the controller, I look at this. It goes on our financials every year. So we look at this. We do a calculation, what's collectible, what's not collectible, et cetera. So I'm familiar with it. I look at this. We went from 15 employees to 5 employees, so we're just not billing like we were. We're having compliance issues with Medicare and Medicaid. That's another problem that we're having. Some of those claims are being kicked back, saying we're not going to reimburse these, or we're going to reimburse less. So it's a multi-pronged problem. But I do look at those. Ed Romero's been looking at it, been the supervisor for about a year or so. Prior to that, it was in assessments.
I know he controlled costs to the chair to Councilmember Mike Polensek, when he was moved over to risk management, before he was moved over there, our workers' compensation was out of control, and he moved over there, and he cut that down. He cut costs, and he saved us more than $50,000. He saved us millions of dollars, Councilmember Mike Polensek, when you go back and you look at the cost of labor. That man saved us millions. So that's why I'm wondering, so let me ask you this other question. To compare and contrast, does it cost more money to use consultants, or or if we hire someone for the job and we have to pay them benefits, and you pay them how much money? Through the chair.
To the chair, the councilperson, I mean, I won't know a definite answer on that. What we think is we're going to be better off with consultants. I think we're going to get a higher collect rate because this is what they specialize in. They continue to keep up on all the training. That's our belief. We will monitor this. If we go out, if we're able to go out and do this, we'll monitor this. And if it's not working out, we'll have to look at it a different way. But we fully believe, based upon the 10 cities in Ohio that have outsourced this, they're just not doing it. They can't get the people. They can't stay up on the codes. So we're the only bigger city in Ohio that's doing this. And I'm sure the small ones aren't doing it, but we just didn't call them. In this case, we're like an oddity. We're the only one.
So you got $50,000 in accounts receivables, and you pay someone to do it, how much would it cost to pay someone and to bring them in and train them and do all of that?
Through the chair, you're talking about employees, or you're talking about the front?
Employees, to cultivate them.
Through the chair, the council member, again, we haven't really made a big push since 2022 because we made a big push at that time to fill these vacancies. It was unsuccessful. We got one employee. The employee later worked about a couple weeks and it tritted. We've had up to 3-4 temps. We had 3 or 4 last year. They've all left employment, so now we're with 5 people. So it's just a combination of a lot of things. A, it's hard to get medical billers, pay medical billers, get them to stay here. B, no other major city is doing this. C, the complexity of Medicare billing continues to change.
So you're looking at trends when you say no, the cities are doing this. You're looking at the trends of the other cities. They got rid of it, and they've been successful through the chair to the controller.
Through the chair, none of them have switched back. So when we talk to them, it's working well for them. So they switched, and they've not went back to billing it in-house. So I would say by that analysis, it's working better for them.
Yeah, I don't want to beat up Ed. Ed is he's pretty good, but so let me ask you this last question. Looking at the 50,000, the 50,000 is from what period? To another period.
The chair, the council person, that's usually about 6 months. Our window's about 6 months. So it's usually around 6 month window for those. We do a lot of EMS runs.
You saw it coming in your direction, is that correct?
To the chair of the council person, yes, I've been monitoring this with the finance director. In the last couple of years, we've tried to come up with solutions. Again, we've moved the division around to try to solve some of these problems. Maybe we weren't successful doing that. The employees are still dissatisfied. But we have made some moves. We got a new supervisor. We moved the division somewhere else. And we did outreach to try to get employees in 2022. Once it was apparent that we couldn't really get employees, we started looking at what are other cities doing. So we did our research, and we've just come to the conclusion it's just more efficient, more effective, and it's going to be a better revenue generator for the city long term if we have a professional firm do this.
Yeah, if you could compare and contrast to the chair. I mean, you look at things, you say in 6 months, $50,000, maybe in a year, $100,000, and the contract is how much again?
The chair, the council person, it's probably going to be a person, we haven't sent it out yet to see what the billing is, but most of these firms are billing a percentage, and we will negotiate a good percentage from the firms. I mean, we've got a big backlog, so they're going to want, we're going to have a lot of party interest in coming to the city. We have a lot of EMS runs, so I think we're going to get a lot of interest if we're able to send this out. So the more interest we have, the better percentage we're going to be able to get on the collection. So it should be very competitive. So we're looking forward to having a fairly low percentage that we have to pay, and that just kind of offsets the employment cost of those employees in that unit.
Yeah, because when you, and I'll yield in a second, when you bring on employees, it costs money to recruit employees, it costs
Train
money
them.
to train them, and then attrition hits you, you lost money, you can't keep losing dollars like that, and you gotta get the job done. And so these people, through the chair, they're experts, this is what they do, right?
To the chair, the council person, this is what these firms do. This is all they do. So they have continuous compliance updates. So it's not only bringing people on and training them, it's trying to continually train them as these Medicare and Medicaid rules change. They change, and if you don't put it right when you submit the Medicaid, it gets kicked back. So,
Training's ongoing.
so you have to
Training is
continue to train them. So there's an ongoing training as well with all the employees. So these firms, this is what they do. They have continuous training in-house. And, they're billing for cities all over the country. But in Ohio, there's quite a few firms that are providing services in Ohio.
You don't want to say this one thing. I know when you guys show us the finance book, there's another book you look at also for accounting, receivables, and fund transfers, and those kind of things that you have also that connect to the different departments. That's the accounting part. Here, we look at the finance piece, but there's other systems and structures going on all day, every day. Money and resources being moved around through the chair to the controller.
Yeah, to the chair, to the council member, we have the annual comprehensive financial report. So that's the financials for the city. The process of putting those together for 2023 now. State auditors are on site. They're starting to audit that book. It usually get done around June, early July, and then it's available for everybody. So, that's where we look at receivables, payables, capital assets, and everything.
Oh, right. It's in there, and then you guys break it down, and you bring it over to us.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it. I understand. I just want to know where you were at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And Mr. Gentile, by far, I was not laughing at you. Just to
Oh,
let
it's
you
okay.
know, Councilwoman Santana's getting me in trouble today. This is the bad
That's
kid
okay.
in class today, okay?
I wasn't paying.
Lesson round. Okay, Councilwoman Spencer I think Councilwoman Spencer has one more question. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm feeling really conflicted about this piece. I'm concerned about, first of all, through the chair, the existing positions that are currently on staff and what would happen with those existing employees.
That's a great question. And to the chair, to the councilwoman, all those employees will be given a like job at like pay at the city. So they'll be moved into billing, or if they want to continue medical billing, we'll negotiate in the contract if we have one with the vendor that they will employ them. So they're not going to be displaced. So they're going to make what they're making now, either in a like city job. But if they really want to do medical billing, we will negotiate with that firm. It'll be part of the requirement. You will not get this contract unless you allow our employees to work for you. So we'll have to sit down with those employees and decide what their choice is. But they're not going to totally be out of a job. They're going to have a job either with the city or with the firm that's chosen.
So through the chair, my concern about a job with the firm is it may be like in some ways, but maybe it might be, there's no way to, not knowing who the vendor is, there's no way to guarantee a commensurate position. Someone might have public benefits. Someone might have, this is someone's position in life we're talking about here. So I'm very uncomfortable with that aspect of it. I wish this had been socialized with council before coming to the table today. This feels like a fairly big shift and kind of coming and not hearing about it before this moment is a little challenging. So I mean, I understand the point about catching up on all the accounts receivable, but you know, I'm not totally convinced that we couldn't hire, also only because we have recently put into place better HR policies, right? That makes us hopefully more likely to attract talent. So I'm really feeling conflicted about this piece today, and not fully in favor at this point in time.
To the chair, Councilwoman, I understand. I mean, I just go back to no other city is doing this. So everyone has moved away from this. I mean, we're the only one doing it. So I get it, and I feel for the employees. That's why we're trying to make sure as best we can that they're taken care of in some form or fashion. Again, if they choose city employment, they will continue to have all their benefits. They'll get paid what they're getting paid or more, depending on what position they're moved into, if that's what they choose. If they really want to do medical billing, the only option we really have is to require the firm to hire, and I can't speak to the unknown firm as to what benefits they would provide them. We would have to ask those questions, and hopefully we can make it comparable to what the city has. But we would definitely make sure these employees are taken care of, at least at the city or with the firm, and they would choose which avenue they wanted to pursue.
And just for full disclosure, I did have conversations with and look at other cities, and I did reach out to AFSCME and others to see how their employees were being effectuated. And even though they did have some concerns, they did have a conversation with the administration that those employees will be placed and will be taken care of. So that was one of the things that before I even put this on the agenda, that I did have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you, Council President. Just to follow up, I really appreciate hearing that from you, Council President. And I wanted to then, through our chair, to confirm that, if I understand correctly, that the existing folks in these positions will be offered similar or better paid positions at the City of Cleveland, that all who are currently employed will be offered similar or better paid, the same amount of pay or better at the City of Cleveland after this transition.
Through the chair of the council, that's exactly correct, and it will be their option. So if they say, we want to continue with the job because we like the benefits or whatever, we will find them a job. We making what they're making or more, depending on the position. So they're not going to be financially harmed. They're not going to be benefit harmed. You know, they may be career path harmed if they want to really do medical billing. But if we move away from that, it's something we're not doing. Right now, we have 2 billers and we have 2. I forget the total title, but they basically post the revenues. And then we have a supervisor. But they will be taken care of. It will be their option to choose. But we definitely will take care of these employees.
Thank you. And I'll just say in closing, you know, I'm not completely enthusiastic about this piece, but hearing that Council President did reach out to AFSCME does give me a higher level of comfort, and your response gives me a higher level of comfort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let me just say this. I really struggle with this piece as well because I do not like job erosion, and I always try to make sure that we should do as much internal as possible. I did share with the administration my concern and council's concern about the multitude of consultants and others that we are continuing to hire for these different jobs. But I do have to say that Medicaid reimbursement is a very complex field. And it changes, and the rules and regulations change on a regular basis. And when I start looking at the receivables of Cincinnati and some others compared to ours, and then also after having conversations with the workers, or you know, the affected workers, not the affected workers, but their union, I'm okay with moving it forward. I did hold this for about 2 weeks until I got some clarity, but I think after having the conversations, I think I'm in a comfortable place to move it forward, okay?
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman?
just let me say this, and to me, it's just a clear indication of division and department. It's like demolition by neglect. You don't put the proper folks in there, you don't hire them, you've got a toxic work environment, should have never been taken out of licenses and assessments. Why wasn't even an EMS to begin with? But at the end of the day, again, operation, administration by consultant, and the people, the workers that are in there are getting a shaft. They're getting a shaft. That's what they're getting. And so you, Mr. Gentile, before you ride back in the room, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gentile basically indicated the toxic work environment that exists there.
Yeah.
So again, please record me as a no. I will not support this.
All right, got it. Councilman Polensek is a no on this? Please record Councilman Polensek as a no. All right. Do we have any other no's? So how many, well, let's do the voice vote. Let's go down the line if we could, okay? Call the roll so that we can call the roll. Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Okay. Well, all the yeas, please sign on. Thank you. All right, hearing no other questions, this ordinance 75-2024 stands approved. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is now adjourned.
Mr. President.
Call it a chair.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Bishop.
so just to clarify, this contract, we have the right to refuse it after the first term, right? What's the first term, 3 years?
After the first 3 years of it, right?
Okay, all right.
Chair.
2 years with an option.
Chair, if I may, I want to make sure that the councilman's getting the right information. Was after the 3 years, was that requiring additional legislative authority, or it is not? So maybe we make that amendment.
Right now, it's the fine instructor's option for
I would rec-
1 year.
Can we make an amendment? The required
So
additional?
then, if we already moved, then we would have to do another piece of legislation to do the amendment,
Why is that?
because we made an action.
I think we could recall it.
Yeah.
Out of committee, you could probably recall it to the, chair could recall it to the committee. It's not voted on by council. I think you could recall it to the committee.
Recall it to, can we recall it to the committee to just make sure that we get,
To add the amendment.
to add the amendment,
I think the best practice is to do
another piece of legislation?
or tonight, regular meeting on the floor, motion.
A motion to amend on the floor.
On the floor?
Yeah, I mean, you've already voted on it.
So then we would have to either make a vote on the floor tonight, or we would have to do another amendment to the actual piece.
Correct.
Let's just do another amendment to the piece.
Okay.
Then we could just add an amendment. We'll just do an amendment for this
Did we,
piece.
just as a point, Mr. Chairman, I thought I remember historically we have recalled pieces back to committees. Is that not a thing? I thought we had done that.
Well, Councilman McCormick, I would have to look that up.
Okay, you and me both.
I haven't.
We'll get clarification
Okay, all
from
right.
Rachel tonight and our parliamentarian, but just know we do plan on inserting an amendment for another.
So after 3 years.
Oh, I'm still confused. What's happening with this?
Not voting on tonight.
And if they hadn't given us, we had requested information, we got it.
So we could just not hear it before tonight, Chair.
That's why I'm not here.
Oh,
Okay.
add the amendment for next week.
Can we do that? It is, just hold it until next week and then we'll add the amendment. What is the, Joe has a list of information. Can you guys send a list of information that we requested? Mr. Gentile, do you have a list that we requested some information that we didn't get yet? Can you follow up? All right.
Okay, yeah, I would get that right away.
All right. Thank you. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is adjourned to the call of the chair.